Hi everyone. Sorry about the few minutes delay. We had a little bit of technical stuff going on. This is my first YouTube live. So those of you who follow me already know a lot about me, but I will just, for any new people that are over, just let you know who I am. So my name is Manjinder Sidhu. I'm a life coach, author, and also a speaker. And I have a book that I've written, which is called Bollywood Gay, which is a #1 bestseller. And today I am joined with Nuthan Manohar, who I will put on the screen in a minute, who will explain more about why we are here. So if you look at my social media work, you will notice that I work very closely with the LGBT community, especially for minorities, people from ethnic minority backgrounds. So that's what my book's about, which I'll show you, which I should have had next to me, but I don't, it's over there. But let me just show you. So this is my #1 bestseller, Bollywood Gay. So it's a self-help book, and there's about 13 different languages inside for coming out and any sort of issues you have with yourself. So Nuthan got in touch with me because she wanted to give back to the community and she wanted to help. She is a happiness mentor, a sleep expert. She's also a TEDx speaker, world renowned. I will put her on the call in a second. And she wants to help today to look at tools and techniques to help you with those of us who have been in isolation and quarantine, which is like the whole world, and sort of issues that you may face. So you might have been at home alone with your family, maybe your job or career, you had issues with that, maybe you lost your job because of all the downturn, the isolation, loneliness, any addictions you may have had, sleep patterns. I know I've had issues sleeping the last few nights, and any emotions like fear and anxiety. And let's not forget health conditions like coronavirus. So, Nuthan, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so
Yeah.
welcome to my YouTube channel.
Okay. Thank you, Manjinder. I'm really happy to be here, and I'm really glad that you found it worthwhile to connect so that we could help people who are going through some difficulties during this phase, and that I think is everyone across the globe.
Yes, exactly. Well, the whole world is experiencing this pandemic together, and then on top of that, with all the other sort of protests such as Black Lives Matter, and then there's so many things going on in India as well. So do you want to tell me a little bit more about yourself, and then we can take it from there?
Okay. So I think from early childhood onwards, I was quite interested in helping people out. So I think I was there in Girl Guides, in Red Cross. I think that need was there quite early on. But surprisingly, I went on to learn computer science and then I went to work with brand consulting. But it was only when I hit a low point, as in this was around 2010, when I personally went through a low point, I started questioning about what is it that I could do to help myself. Because though there were months where my medical bills were going much more than my salary, and it was not funny at all. Okay, and I was on all sorts of medications, whether it was for depression, for anxiety. I was having problems with reproductive health. I think head to toe, everything was going off. So, all right.
Wow. So you had
So
so many. That's very similar, I think, for what I went through as well. I think through my own journey, that's how I started helping others, actually. So it's interesting on similar lines. I've just sent out a message, a comment to ask people they can hear us. Okay, people can hear us. It's working fine. Yay,
perfect.
that's
All right.
perfect. So carry on, carry on.
Yes. So this is around 2010, and that's when I kind of turned back. And I was living in Hong Kong during those years, and I was started revisiting yoga. And I realized that something that was just 1 hour of my day was actually making a lot more difference than all the medical attention, all the psychiatric attention, all the therapist attention that I was getting. And so I kind of started exploring it, and I already had a background in behavior. So I was already, being able to connect what's my behavior pattern and how it can impact my health. So all the way from breathing techniques to mindfulness to yoga to postures and little habits and how it could create a difference. So I started actually exploring it more. I went on to do various teacher training courses. I went on to do a master's in yoga.
Oh, wow.
And in the last decade, I've worked on 90 different modules, around 45 physical conditions and 45 mental conditions, including depression, bipolar disorder, winter depression, back pain, miscarriages, name the whole gamut of things. And the fact is that, what I realized is while certain aspects of therapy works for some people, for most of us, if we work with behavior, we work with teaching them how your habits can actually change your life. That seemed to work. So I started going around telling people, for instance, if you're having trouble sleeping, maybe there are patterns that you need to change. Maybe there are patterns you need to adopt. Maybe there are patterns you need to modify. Likewise, if you're not feeling happy, to me, happiness, end of the day, is a biochemical reaction happening in the body. So there are things that you could do, maybe through food, maybe through, companionship, maybe through just tactile, inputs that you can actually change how you feel. Likewise, a lot can be done with the mind because I always thought that the mind is by default a positive place. I was shocked to realize that mind by default is a negative place. So I have to turn it around.
Mm-hmm.
So if in a day.
So can you explain that? So you said that you found out that the mind as a default was a negative place. Do you think that's for everyone, or can you expand on that a bit more?
Sure, would love to see. The mind was created so that this body survives. And this body was created long, long, long back. Okay. So in those times, for instance, if you see a nice animal out there, you shouldn't go hug it thinking, oh, it's a cute cat. It could be a tiger. Right. So there are lots of mechanisms put into your system so that you think of the world as a dangerous place. You think of risks rather than you think of, oh, wow. Okay, that's how, as a race, we survived. End of the day, we do not have sharp teeth, we do not have claws. So our survival depended on this brain, its ability to look at something and say, danger. So in the dark, if you see a figure, the go-to default statement would be danger rather than, oh, that's my friend. Okay, that kept us going. So now what has happened is now there are no saber-toothed tigers attacking us. There is really not much danger, but the brain is still being built for it. So for instance, in a day, if you have 5 positive things that happen to you and just 1 negative thing that happens to you, interestingly, it's a negative thing that you would remember. So there is a bias already. Okay. Likewise, if you take the women's brain, you would find the part which is associated with guilt is actually much larger. Really? Now, that was there for a reason, because if women, or not just in human beings, in within the animal kingdom, most of the female, if they did not have that, they would have a baby, leave the baby and go. They're not going to have a guilty feeling associated. So to make sure that the race survives, you've been given these, I would say, gifts so that you survive. But now we need to figure out a way so that it doesn't kill us. Right now, we are killing ourselves. When we look at, yeah, you were saying, I'm sorry?
It's almost like you're psychic that you can tell I'm going to say something. It's interesting because I know some people who are predispositioned to actually be happy. Like I've met some people in my life who their natural state of being is happiness. And I'm always like shocked. I'm like, dude, I had to work so hard to even get close to that. But I find some people, maybe it's due to genetics, family background, or what they went through, or I don't know, karma, or
You're right there, because see, for instance, I mean, even though in the animal kingdom, in the cave age, there were still few of us who thought, oh, that's a nice cat. There were still those who kind of said, oh, I want to go see what's there, right? So it took all of us. Most of us are negative, but some of us might be willing to go and do something which is beyond everyone else's comfort zone. So a lot of it is genetic. A lot of it is what you have experienced in, say, maybe a couple of, say, generations. So there is genetic component, there is epigenetic component. But the good thing is, it doesn't matter where you are. if you start now, you can make a difference. And that's the best thing that yoga has taught me. So in Hatha Yoga, it kind of says that it doesn't matter what your age is, what your ailments are, but if you start now, you can master, or you can at least get closer to it.
You know, for
So,
me, it was first meditation, I would say.
mhm,
I did Vipassana meditation. And then secondly was yoga, actually, because I had so much mental health problems with depression and also socially phobic, unable to speak to people. So I
mhm,
started at university, I started doing yoga every day. And I tell you,
mhm.
it changed my life. Really did.
Oh, it changed mine too. I was always a physically active person, but the way for me, that is asana, the asana practice kind of changed me. It was brilliant because suddenly you're doing things which are difficult. So
Mm.
technically your body is under stress, but you're teaching yourself, training yourself to breathe slowly, which is calming. So you're like, okay, I need to do this. I'm going to do this for now. I don't have to do this forever. So I'm going to be mindful. And then when it's over, I let it go.
And
And that was
yoga is one of those things that it's very mental as well.
true. Actually, that's the message that I would like to get across, that asana, the physical part, is just one tiny bit of it. Raja Yoga, or the traditional knowledge, was about mastery of the mind. So the idea was use your body to control the mind. So one step, the third step to be precise, was just postures, and it was not given much attention. It was,
Mm.
further states like meditation. So you would actually start with how would you behave with the world, because that is going to impact how you conquer your mind. What are the observances you do in your own life? And that is going to help you conquer the mind. How well can you master this body? How well can you manage your breath, your energy? From there, your focus. From there comes meditation. So you actually started with something which is very difficult for all of us, which is meditation. And then someday from meditation, you move to unity consciousness, where everything starts to make sense.
So before we get into the workshop, I want to tell
Sure.
our viewers what is your sort of daily routine, or what are the things you do in your life that helps to keep you positive and happy.
Okay. So to be honest, asana practice has really come down. I used to have a yoga studio, so every day I used to be practicing. But since last year, I started focusing more on workshops, more on research, more on my perfumery. So it's been quite challenging to, have that much of discipline into postures. So instead, what I definitely suggest to everyone is gratitude practice. Waking up as well as going back to sleep. Figure out those things that you're grateful for, because I know my mind will be stuck on whatever is negative. Okay, so to push it all the way towards something positive, to something beautiful, something that's good for my own body, my own mind, I always start and end with something with gratitude, and then the power of breathing. Because if I can control my breathing, I can control my emotions. If I'm stressed out, my breathing is short, it's shallow, it's on the upper chest. But if I'm relaxed, it's like a child breathing. It's like, the entire body expands when you breathe and then contracts as you breathe out. And that's something that can really make a difference.
So what kind of breathing techniques do you do?
So in the Indian system, you have pranayama, and there are various kinds. So primarily there are five, but the one that I found very helpful for many people is the box breathing. So box breathing is basically you inhale for a count, let's say four,
Hmm.
and then you hold your breath for four, then you exhale for four, and then you hold your breath for four. Do you want to give it a try?
Go on then, let's give it a go. I think we can
All right?
all do with that before we start the
Sure.
session.
All right.
Okay.
So sit comfortably, and if you're watching us, feel free to close your eyes and just go into some place that you wish you could be at, somewhere that you feel loved, happy, comfortable, relaxed, and then just connect with your breath, connect with your body. Become mindful of how your skin feels. Become mindful of how the breath goes in and out. Now, if your mind is in the past, bring it to the present moment. If it's in the future, again, bring it back to the present moment. Now inhale, the abdomen rises. Exhale, the abdomen falls. Gentle inhalation, the abdomen rises. Exhale, the abdomen falls. Inhale slowly, feel the breath go all the way in, feeling that energy go in. As you exhale, let it all go. And now breathe with my count. Inhale slowly for 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold the breath for 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale for 4, 3, 2, 1. And then hold the breath for 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale for 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold the breath for 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale for 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold the breath for 4, 3, 2, 1. And then just gently, gently open your eyes. Take your time to come out of that. We've just done 2 rounds. Since you meditate, could you tell me how you felt?
So like I was saying earlier, the lockdown has been quite difficult. Lots of stuff's been going on in my life. And the last few nights, my head and how I've been feeling, because I haven't been sleeping. But just now, by just disconnecting, and you mentioned gratitude and gratefulness, it just kind of reconnected me with that. And I felt a sense of peace underneath all the clouds of headache and whatever else. I mean, that's what we're here to learn today. So it was good.
Okay. And the breathing practice, we just did 2 rounds. Ideally, you should do 10 or 20 rounds if you're a beginner. But since you've been practicing meditation, there's a good chance that it automatically brought you more peace. Okay, it's a very simple technique, but 20 rounds, or if you're very connected to it, just 10 rounds is going to make a lot of difference, because you are kind of telling the mind to calm down. You're bringing it into focus, and that's when you can actually start exploring what is good and not just get overwhelmed with whatever is going on.
And it's very interesting, because obviously being in lockdown, being stuck at home, people in general are forced to face themselves. That's why they're saying divorce rates are increasing, domestic violence. And then if we look at obviously LGBT people and what they go through, maybe they're stuck at home alone with family who could be abusive. And then, also people, like I know my father lost his job, and he's got a new job now, thankfully, but people may be economically suffering and experiencing all these sort of like issues. So loneliness, isolation. And I think for myself, when I was thinking about LGBT individuals, I was thinking about, like most humans, how a lot of us are running away from ourselves. If we're not working on our mind, our issues, we're running away. Maybe we're medicating ourselves, maybe we're eating more food, maybe we are distracting ourselves with addictions, alcohol, sex, food, drugs, whatever it is, and in the LGBT community, that can be quite high. And the avoiding oneself, avoiding one's issues, and staying at home has been quite difficult. Causing fear, anxiety, sleep issues. And what advice would you give to people who are forced into facing being alone, being with it's almost like those demons in your head, you kind of like confronting them?
I think, the first part is to understand that is also you. Okay, because all the things that you are facing, for instance, you might be feeling anger, you might be feeling pain, you might be feeling irritations, frustrations, trauma, all of it. But the most important thing is to Take time to observe, to identify what it is, okay, rather than to run away. For instance, if you're angry, sit with the anger, observe it, okay, don't act upon it. Observe it, okay? I am angry. I am angry about this that happened. The moment you can label it, and maybe beyond that anger, you will realize that I was actually sad. It was not anger. Anger was my defense mechanism. I was sad. I was hurt. I was hurt because I did not expect them to do that to me. I was hurt because it felt unfair. So when you go deeper and deeper into it, okay, then you realize actually end of the day we are all hurt. It's not the demons that we need to run out. We have to understand that we were hurt. And then can we soothe us? Can we heal us? Can we hold our own hands and help us go forward? So the first thing that you would need to do is, get the strength, get the courage to sit and identify what you're going through. Because, see, for instance, at a very least, maybe people would come and tell you, I'm not stressed. But then when I look at them, I look at all the indicators, they are definitely stressed. Okay. So to help them to understand that this is stress or this is anger, this is what you're feeling, we are so disconnected from what's going on within us. I mean, I often joke we are ready to go to Mars, but we're not ready to go inside.
Yeah, so we probably know more about the oceans and the space than we know about our inner self. And I found that very, very poignant what you just said. It's almost like accepting the thing you're feeling. And I remember when I used to live abroad, I lived in Israel for a year, and I was very, very lonely. So what I decided to do is what you just said. Like I got myself an apartment for myself alone, and I would come home from work and I would just sit in darkness for like an hour and just sit there and face the fear, almost accept it. And then when you were saying look beyond the layers, I've written about it in my book as well, where like some you're triggered by something, and it's about unpacking the deep-rooted cause, the real, which is like you said, it's hurt, some sort of emotion that's deep down within that.
Sure.
So it's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, likewise, I mean, it's like, when I used to have phobias, I was scared of the dark. And then it took me actually to go sit there in the dark and wait, okay, let's see what happens. I mean, yes, my heart rate would race, but then thankfully I knew the breathing technique, so I would control the breath and therefore be able to manage. So maybe if you can combine the introspection with the breathing technique, you will actually hit there faster, because these are things that trigger us. So for instance, I mean, if a certain person's image or an event triggers us, we may not be able to control the way our heart, responds or how stressed we feel. So combine it with the breathing technique, maybe the 4-count breathing or just deep abdominal breathing, and then face it all the way back to when we understand, what is it really? Okay. And the other part of it is, see, for instance, this has happened and it has happened in the past. Maybe we cannot change it. That actually gives us 2 options. And I've worked with both these options now. One is basically if you understand how memory is. Okay, for instance, you and I are having this good conversation. 5 years from now, if we have a great, acquaintance going on, when we think back, we'll be like, oh, that was great. But suppose 5 years from now, suppose we fall off. Okay, then if you think back, it's like, oh, she was stupid. Right? That happens because our memory is not fixed. Something that has happened, the more we think about it, the more we talk about it, we can actually give it colorings which may never have been there. So for instance, if I talk to you and I tell you, hey, listen, your mother told me that, when you were 7 years old, something like this happened. After a few days, maybe you might actually have, memories of that happening, and I would have just made up the story. This has been a study, actually it was a study that was done in UK. Can we create memories? So in the past, if you had something that was really painful, what you can do now is take control and maybe start creating beautiful moments around it. For instance, I work with sexually abused victims, rape victims. I mean, I know their pain of what they have gone through, but then I try to help them focus on maybe days before the event or after the event and all the good things, and even create good things that were never there.
Yeah,
Right?
it's almost
So
like
when
a
they
refocus, isn't it? A reframe. In
yes,
NLP, we call it a
refocus
reframe.
reframe is when you go to something that has been there, but here you're creating a memory. For instance, let's take a case, this person never had the memory of going to a theme park and, playing and all that. But now you tell them, no, you went to the theme park and you played, and create more and more, create more and more happy memories. So in short, you kind of go and just create. And the best part is it works.
Some people may say, oh, that's very easy said and hard to do, especially if you're living with an abusive family or it's right there in front of you. So, I mean, what can we say about that then? What can we...
I didn't have a very easy childhood. I still don't have a great, support from the family. So I thrive on it. I completely thrive on trying to create, because if I let the trauma affect me or pull me, then I might go into that area. So instead, I try to create, or maybe add embellishments, as I say, to events that were around those situations. So, for instance, I might put a lot more of my focus on a particular sunset that I saw rather than the, flashing that I might have gotten. Right, so things like that. The second thing that you can do, again, it's something that, again, I've found many people across the globe do this. Most of the people who have gone to heal, including you, have come because of a deep, deep hurt. And you try to heal it and you realize so many others need it. So whatever you're going through could become the stepping stone which is going to help millions others to, come out. Okay, and to face their fears and to find hope. So whatever you're going through now, tomorrow, if you decide to be strong enough, you decide to heal yourself, you're going to create immense value for everyone around. Yesterday I was reading this story and it literally moved me to tears. I might actually burst out today also. It's this lady in Maharashtra. She was called Chindi in the sense torn. Okay, she was an unwanted child, a child of unwanted pregnancy. So her family completely disowned her. At the age of 10, she was married off to a man who was 30. He was an alcoholic. He was abusive. At the age of 20, she got pregnant, and when she was 9 months pregnant, he threw her out.
Oh.
She gave birth in the cowshed next to the house. There was no one from his family or her family to take care of her. She had to cut the cord herself. I mean, I can't just imagine that, And she went back to her house. Her house did not accept her. So she finally started begging in the railway stations to get food. And that's when she realized, now that's where her strength is. She realized there were other orphans who needed help. And she started helping. Now she is the mother of 1,700 children.
Wow. Does she have a center or what?
She doesn't. She continues to beg.
Okay.
Now she does talks, and that's how she kind of earns some money. But she continues to live the same way. And now here was the turning point. Finally, her husband came back, and this I think would be a fairy tale ending, and she accepted him back. I do not expect that much to happen, but
I mean, it's admirable that she accepted him, because she could have said, you were not there for me and I do not want anything to do with you.
Yeah, exactly. And he was, I think now she's 60, so he must be 80 or something like that.
Wow.
But and if you look at her photos also, there's this incredible strength to her, incredible compassion to her. And what she's gone through, I think, she would inspire all of us. I mean, we are all going through our own hells.
Do you think sometimes we go through things to learn stuff or to help others? Is there like a perspective on that front, or?
I would love to believe that, because otherwise I cannot make sense of trauma that I go through or you've gone through or many people have gone through. Because, for instance, we believe in karma, but sometimes I just cannot understand it. For instance, when I see a baby die, or somebody have problems from childhood, or be abused in childhood, or face violence in childhood, or not be accepted by the family, I just cannot attribute just karma to it. All right, I think there has to be more. So often I say, like, if there is a God, I think I'm going to go and fight, because I think this is not fair. But on the contrary, what has happened when they convert that into something strong, they actually become what the earth needs right now. We don't need one more person to build a building, or call upon racism or things like that. We need people who care. We need people who have felt things and who value human life and emotions, not just human also, but as well as animal, as well as plant. And that's what we really need. So maybe all the pain that you're going through, if you can convert it, if you can sublimate it, if you can move it up, that's going to change your life. It's going to change everyone around you.
You know, what you said earlier was very interesting as well, where you were talking about how people go through something and they almost generalize it. It's almost like that happened and then they dismiss it. And then how you were talking about the need to kind of, when I work with clients, I always look at it through, like, instead of seeing it from one perspective, try to see from multiple perspectives, maybe their perspective, another person's perspective, because in that way you are possible to maybe bring about a different awareness and shift in yourself.
True. Actually, what I do is I read a lot of stories and I tell them these stories. So, for instance, this Maharashtrian lady, her story, likewise, there will be million stories, and one of them might actually click. Often, if for a person who's gone through trauma, if you tell them, hey, forgive, or, hey, this is to your good, or you're going to, that kind of turns into positive, toxic positivity rather. Okay, and I see a lot of that. It's like, people who not experience the pain, they go and tell you, hey, it's going to be okay. It may not be okay. So instead, I kind of try to tell them about people and how did they go about doing it, or teach them techniques which if they try to implement, how they can change their life.
So what are the main techniques that are like ones that you use that you find to be very, very pivotal?
Journaling is very, very helpful. Okay, so daily, like, getting down, for instance, the gratitude practice, if you can actually write it, okay, that makes a difference.
So,
okay, even if you write about, I release this, I let go of this, the pain, I release the pain that I feel, I release the frustration that I feel. There you're allowing yourself to feel what what you're actually, you help yourself identify the feeling and then you allow it to let it go. So writing really helps. It also helps give you clarity because, otherwise we get stuck with just 2 or 3 thoughts. That's what the brain is capable of at a time. But now you allow it to, explore many other sides.
Okay, just carry on, Nuthan, saying
Sure.
what are the tools and techniques you are. I've got someone knocking on my door, but I put the camera onto you.
All right. So, okay. The few tools and techniques that I would like to teach today is, one is definitely try to listen to positive stories. Definitely listen to as many positive stories as you can. Go find them. Because, around us, there are people who have overcome the problems that we are facing as well as worse than what we have faced. Okay, so find those stories and draw inspiration from them. Now, the good part of your mind is if you imagine that, they are sitting right in front of you and giving you that energy, you will feel the difference. So first thing is definitely surround yourself with as many positive stories as possible. Second thing, in these days, would be reduce the news that you consume, because most of the news you consume would be negative. It's going to make you more anxious. Okay, instead, just consume positive news. The second part is definitely, like I said, the breathing techniques greatly helps. If there is just one thing that you can do, just go for breathing. Now, if you do have the companionship of maybe family or friends or partner, anyone, then definitely make sure you hug each other a lot more. Hug each other and breathe together. That's going to make a lot of difference, because end of the day, if you create rituals which are related to trust, Okay, because the world out there might seem dangerous, the world might be stressful, or even in our minds it can be stressful. But if we force ourselves to just hug and just breathe, slow in and slow out, observe the other person's breath, what will happen is, whoever's calmer, actually your brain waves start to sync. Okay?
That's similar
So
with animals as well, isn't it? With dogs and cats.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. It's called entrainment.
Okay.
Okay, so you connect and you just breathe. Actually, a lot of these techniques work with animals also. I worked with animals who have problems as well. And even with them, it works. If you calm down and you practice breathing that is calming, if you practice the kind of touch that is calming rather than a grab, that tactile sense of, safety, warmth, comfort, and even pleasure, that's actually going to help you feel so much better.
You said to watch positive things and avoid the news. And I used to think the same way a while back. But I've come to a different conclusion now. I've come to the conclusion for myself. Watch negative news, or whichever news which is negative anyway, only watch that when you are in a high vibration, when you're feeling really, really good about yourself and the world. And then you can see what is wrong or bad, but from a different perspective. As opposed to being deflated or depressed by it, you can give good insight or compassion to it. Because I find that it's unavoidable to not know what is going on in the world as well. Like the updates come on the phone, don't they? But definitely, the more positive we can consume, the better. Because society, culture, media, everything around is geared up for that drama. Yeah.
No, very true. I mean, it's a very interesting thought, actually. When you're feeling high, if you consume the news, and if you're feeling low and you consume a similar news, the effect is going to be very high. But now here's the thing. Okay, so this was a study, I think it was in Harvard. What they wanted to do was, understand how behavior changes or perception changes or, just your mood changes. So people were recruited for the study, and when they walk in, here's what they will see. They would see a paper which is written up. I mean, there are a couple of paragraphs about Mary. Okay. And somewhere in that, there's a line which says Mary had a neighbor, John. Okay. And there are 4 questions at the end of it. 3 of them are about Mary. And the 4th question is, what kind of a person is John? Okay. Now, before they came in for the test without their knowledge, here is what happened. Half of the test subjects were asked to hold a glass of cold beverage, and it was a cold day. So for instance, a volunteer would just suddenly walk up to them, they wouldn't know this, and hey, please, can you just hold this for me? I need to tie my shoelace or something. So people who held the cold cup said that John was a negative person. They had bad things to write about John. People who held a warm cup had better things to say.
Oh, wow.
So even the sensation of a cup in your hand can change how you feel. So, so any news that you would post, the thing is, I used to work in consumer behavior. My job was to actually make sure people change their behavior in 30 seconds. If you buy this biscuit, then you need to buy my biscuit within 30 seconds of communication. Likewise, in news also, since I think you worked on NLP also, right? I mean, NLP, yeah. You know how words trigger you. Mm-hmm. So then immediately, it starts to create a change. And I would say the thing is, yes, news has its value. You have to be informed. But it doesn't, honestly, news is supposed to inform you and not force you into an opinion. So if you can find news that informs you of something which is useful, instead of listening to something that's something that you can't, because I think, recently a teammate of mine asked me, hey, what do we do about this situation that's going on? And I told her that, right now, I think after years of, responding to various news that comes in, as heartbreaking as it is, in India, every other day, women are raped, children are raped, animals are killed. There's a lot of things that keeps going on. And it's become to
Dalits
a point that
are killed, Muslims are killed, minorities are killed.
It's
Yeah.
it's bad. It's bad. It's bad. It's bad. But then the thing is, I mean, I decided that only if I feel I can do a proper intervention for them, whether it's with an NGO or whether it's, going up and appealing to the cops or appealing to the, say, minister or something like that. I mean, if I can take proper action, I'll do it. Otherwise, I'm not going to sit on my Facebook and just type about it. So that has been
Yes.
a decision. Now, for instance, Kerala, where I come from, we have very high levels of depression. India is globally the most depressed country, and Kerala has the global highest rates of suicides. We have children suiciding. Our mental health among children are very bad. I did something for 2,000 children. It worked, and I still went, and I went all the way to the ministry and asked them. I told them, I'll do it for free. You don't even have to put my company name, but offer this to your students. They need this. No response.
What? Oh, no response. What did you offer? What did you offer them?
So these are 5 sessions. Basically, I teach them on, for instance, the happiness action plan, as in, what can you do in a day? Like if you have an happiness action plan, because the day is going to pull you down. What are things that you do maybe 3 minutes in a day that makes you happy? Okay, so you kind of have a few things. For some of them would be things that is, things that you love to do. Some of the things are things that you do with nature, because if you do something with nature, automatically you feel happy. Some of the things are things that are good for others, that also makes you feel happy. So if you can do these 3 kind of things, simple things, it
So
might be just as...
that leads me on to people who may be having sleep problems, especially now during lockdown. What would
Yes.
you advise? What would your recommendations be? Because you're a sleep expert, aren't you?
Yeah. People listen to my voice and they fall asleep. So yeah, so here's the thing. I mean, it's like especially if you are facing a problem now after lockdown. Okay, you need to understand that earlier you had a day where you had a lot of activity, your energy levels were completely, utilized, and then it came to a point where you were ready to sleep.
Hmm.
So after a particular time, you cut off. Plus, there was something called a transition. For instance, you go to work, you come back, you commute, and then you come home. Now everything is happening within just 500 square feet. Your interactions are low, which means not less energy expenditure. Maybe you're not getting enough exercises. Maybe you're not getting enough, brain stimulation that's happening. For instance, I mean, there are days where you go in for a meeting, you talk to people, and then you come back and you're just so tired, you just want to sleep. And all you've done is talk and interact. And because your brain is something that requires a lot of energy, right? So that is not happening. So definitely, if your problem has started during lockdown, then I suggest you start exercising. Exercise to the level you sweat it out and you actually feel, okay, I'm tired now. Okay. For me, it's mostly cyclings in the evening, anything that you can do, HIIT or yoga, any practice, but which tires you out as well. So that's needed. Second thing is, especially now, caffeine, normally it's 6 hours before sleep, you should be your last cup. Now I would say keep it 10 hours earlier because not much of stimulation is going on. Okay, caffeine is a stimulant. You don't need so much of stimulant right now, so then reduce that. Then comes, for instance, screen time. After a particular time, you need to switch it off. For
Yes.
instance, I mean, right now, all the light that's hitting me, it's affecting my brain. Okay, it's going to affect my melatonin secretion because these are light sensitive parts, the pineal
Mm.
pituitary, all that. And that itself is going to make me not sleep good enough. So you need to create a ritual of transitioning. So exercising, taking care of your food, what stimulants you put in, and then kind of coming to a darker and darker space. So your room ideally should be completely dark, not even your electric LEDs or things like that.
I mean, also people have all these extra worries that are in the background, and it's almost like
That's
plates spinning on sticks, and
true.
that's coronavirus, work, money, parents, all these kind of things. So
Yeah.
would you say the breathing techniques would help to calm
The
that?
breathing technique, yes, the breathing technique definitely helps. So the abdominal breathing, I mean, you don't have to go into the 4 count breathing. 4 count breathing helps you transition, but just doing deep abdominal breathing, like breathe in for 3, breathe out for 3, maybe breathe in for 6, breathe out for 6, but as many times as possible. You
Yes.
might even find a couple of, YouTube audios, which is kind of, the sound of somebody breathing, and just follow that. Follow that for a while, you'll automatically calm down. Or if you feel there's a lot of tightness, maybe you need to do yoga stretches, especially for your hamstrings, especially for your psoas muscles. That will also help you. And then the part that I normally, help people with is like a sleep audio. Okay, it's something that you can play. You get into bed, and it's all dark. It's very nice and cooled. You are in very comfortable natural fibers, all that. And then when you lie down, there are audios which will actually tell you to relax. Okay, to relax different parts of your body. Because as you feel, for instance, I'm relaxing this finger, it's a part in my brain. So this part is actually connected to different parts of my body. It's called the homunculus, the brain homunculus. Okay. So if I'm relaxing my foot, it's a left foot, I'm actually relaxing some part of my right side of my brain. Likewise, if I'm relaxing my jaw, okay, I am, relaxing somewhere else. So all these parts start to work. So these audio, if you kind of listen to it, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to think it through or something. Just listen to it. And it's giving you simple instructions like, breathe or relax, feel your feet relaxing, allow yourself to relax, all that. And that itself starts taking you into
And when you first start doing these kind of things, they might seem unusual, and maybe you don't get the results straight away. But it's almost like a journey, isn't it? Step by step, and you build upon it. Layer by layer, you remove the negativities, the issues, the worries. Yeah.
True. So the fact is, see, for instance, it took you so many years before you actually, started manifesting either physical or mental problems of maybe a trauma. Or it could be that you continue to use your, say, maybe, in those days there were Blackberries. If you continue to use that, after maybe a couple of years, you have a problem with the thumb. Maybe you use your mouse, and then later you might have a problem with your elbow. So it takes time to fall ill. It also takes time to come out.
Yes.
So there's not going to be a quick fix when you're working with yourself, when you're working with your body, when you're working with your mind. It's going to take time. If your body is sensitive, you will sense it immediately. Otherwise, it's going to take time, but it's definitely going to help you. I mean, give it 2 weeks. I mean, whatever you practice, give it 2 weeks, ideally 4 weeks, and you would know the difference. So I would always say, give it a try. The breathing, it sounds so simple that it's almost silly, but do it and then see what happens.
And for some people, it could go worse before it gets better sometimes. Like a healing crisis could happen. Maybe things that you were avoiding start to come to surface, to be faced. And you might think that, oh, this is making me worse. But if it's positive things like yoga, meditation, gratitude, please keep up with it. Because eventually you will see, and I see right now, year 2020, we got 2020 vision. People sitting at home are starting to see things they would not have paid attention to, and it can be quite difficult to digest. However, it's part of the healing to see what was not there, that it was there, but it was hidden. It wasn't given the attention.
True. No, and it is true. See, for instance, I mean, even in yoga, one of the reasons why they say you should have a teacher, somebody to support you through your growth. I mean, again, it's the work of your mind and not just the body. It's because there are chances that you would, at some point you might feel really overwhelmed. I mean, I remember one time when I was writing and suddenly I just burst into tears. And I didn't know where that came from. And I was like, why was I crying? But then this is something inside. Now, trust the process and then keep practicing, because the breathing is never going to go wrong. If it's slow, deep breathing, it's never going to go wrong. If it's fast-paced breathing, there are chances that things can go wrong. So that's why I always stick to the basic one. It's the slow breathing. There are so many benefits of the fast breathing, but if you're doing it on your own, I would always recommend stick to the slow ones, because that's in sync with how your body works.
What would you say about people who have addictions, for example? and they are home, and maybe they've been using addictions to avoid or to, numb themselves. So how would they go about working on themselves?
To me, addictions are clear signs of trauma. And I think there are various research now that support that people who have trauma, they're the ones who get addicted. Okay. So, okay, understand you have an addiction, but what is the trauma that you're working on? What is that pain? What is that hurt? All that needs to be addressed. So that's going to take a bit more of time, a bit more of attention. But if you do now, the good thing is, see, for instance, a lot of times people, especially people who smoke, okay, they do it for stimulation. They do it because suddenly, if they need their brain, super active and stimulated, they would, go for a smoke. Or if they want to deal with a stressful condition, they would go for a smoke. Or if they want to even calm down, they would go for a smoke. But with the breathing practice, you might actually have enough energy that, you don't feel like smoking so much. So the breath work has a lot of, I should say this, long back, I used to smoke, okay? And the first thing that happened to me once I started breathing practice was that, I just couldn't smoke anymore. One is that, my system started to clear out. And the other was that, my system became so sensitive that anything that is not working, that's not good for me, my body automatically will reject, and it will not like slight rejection, it will be like a huge rejection. So now it's come to a point I cannot stand smoke anywhere near me. I kind of say that's my kryptonite. Okay, so you definitely can do a lot with your breathing practice, because at the end of the day, addictions come from hurt, and addiction come from certain kind of energy that you want to create. And do the breathing practice that helps.
When I do Vipassana meditation and I go on courses, they always talk about how obviously the Buddha became enlightened through meditation, and how the unconscious mind is directly connected. Like the breath is almost like a bridge to the unconscious mind, and then as you overcome it, to your enlightenment. So today you've said about gratitude, about breath work, about exercise, about changing your viewpoint on things that you go through. How would you apply that to emotions, people experiencing loneliness, fear, anxiety? Can that also be?
Okay. Now, that's where, see, for instance, there are two kinds of people. Again, it's like the two ends of the spectrum. One set of people who get energy when they connect with other people, extroverted people.
Yes.
Okay. For them, see, you have to understand that their brain is wired that way. Okay. So asking them to be lonely, it's not fair. Likewise, the other side, I think somebody like me, we are introverted. So for us, it's like, okay. So for us, it's always small circles. If I spend a lot of time with many people, I think it will drain me. I would be tired. Okay. So to figure that out, and then do what is necessary. So if you're an extroverted person and if you're in lockdown, then maybe you should start connecting with other people. Maybe you should do fun stuff online, or maybe foster a dog, or, have fun, like, things that connects you and gives you that push and a lot of, external energy, because that's how your brain is, going to draw inspiration, going to draw ideas, all that. But if you're an introverted person, I think loneliness doesn't become a problem. But even then, for us, we do need companionship. All the people that I know who are introverted, they are some of the most loyal, companionship-seeking, maybe even codependent people, right? So that's another way. So for them, maybe finding few relationships and nurturing them. Okay, maybe you find that online, maybe you find that through communities or groups, and then nurture it. But for somebody who's extroverted, creating those groups can make a difference. Okay, good. So using your personality to go out there, which actually helps somebody somehow.
And what about people with health issues during this pandemic and other issues that are coming up? How can they? Because you talked about food very briefly. I don't know if you want to connect food with this, or is there anything else you want to connect with health?
Now, most of health conditions are related to food, related to exercise, related to sleep, related to attitude.
Yes.
Okay. And if you look at people who live longer, so in blue zones, the blue zone study, these are communities that live to be 100 years old. It's been found that some of them do it because, they have good dietary habits. And these are people, if you look at the blue zone diet, if you take a plate, that plate is smaller than most of the plates. Okay. So the size of the plate is small, but half the plate is full of green leaves. Okay. And then maybe 1/4 or less than that, maybe 20% is your complex carbs, okay, or your cereals to be precise, okay, cereals. And then would be your protein, all that, lots of legumes, okay. They drink a lot more water, or rather they have a habit of sipping water. They have a glass of wine. Okay, so things like that. So if you can follow their kind of diet, longevity is better. And when I say longevity, these are people who have lived healthier and happier. Okay, even in their old age, they do not have problems. Maybe they do not have a six-pack. Okay, but they are healthy now. And I would always aim for that, rather than being buffed up or something, but to be healthy, to be functional. Second is that if you look at exercise, these are, what was found is that they don't exercise a lot. Instead, they have activity throughout the day.
Okay.
So most of them live in, mountainous regions. They have to climb up, they have to climb down. They are working in fields, they are fishing, things like that, where there's a lot of manual labor. Okay. So for instance, I love cycling. I cycle, and I cycle as an exercise. But then, the moment I work on lifting my pot, it's an entire set of different muscles that are being used, right? So your entire body needs practice. And that's where I love yoga, the asana practice, because, various asanas work on different parts of the body. It's not just about few sets of postures, or few sets of muscles being trained over and over again. It's all about, mobility and functionality in a traditional asana class. All right. And the third being, your attitude. So there were, communities where they smoked a lot, they drank a lot, they cooked in lard, which is fat, but they had amazing health indexes. So what is found is that the community was so strong. If somebody walks for 2 lanes, they would get invited to somebody's house for coffee or tea or wine or whatever, and they discuss and they help each other. If you can create that kind of community, I think that's going to be helpful. See, because now in Kerala also we have the sense where, where you walk and somebody would say hi to you. But unfortunately, most often the interaction is negative. The interaction is not to help you or to help, and uplift you or anything. It often is to pull you down, because I often joke that, here whenever somebody meets somebody, it's like, oh my God, you lost weight, or oh my God, you put on weight. It's never like, oh wow, you look great. How are you, darling? It's never right. And it indicates in the kind of depression we have in my state. It indicates in the kind of suicide rates that is there in my state. So we would need to kind of look out, and we need to create that. The habits of across. If I walk 3 lanes, I should be able to connect with somebody. If we all try, I think it can change, right? And so I think that should be good enough, right?
Yes, it's great. So I wanted to finish off with your top tips. So if you could give, again, I know earlier I had to exit, but if you could give the viewers top tips that can help them with family, job, emotions, addiction, sleep, health, all these sort of things. What would your top tips be for them to start their journey or progress on their journey to happiness?
Okay. I'll kind of divide it into joy, peace, and purpose. So joy, I would say, gratitude, writing it down. Okay, keep writing it down. That's going to create joy. Okay, and if you can help somebody else, that's going to create joy for you. Okay, that's going to create immense joy for you. So, you turn it around. I'm feeling sad, but it's okay. I'm going to try and make somebody else happy. That's going to help you. Second is peace. Peace, I would say, go for breathing practices. Okay, breathing practices will calm your system down. Of all the things that you can't control, breath is the thing that you can't control, but you can have some control on it, right? And that's why it helps connect with the part of the mind, which is very ambiguous, it is very, nebulous, and you can actually connect there. So do the breathing practices if you want peace. You can do chantings also, repeating the same thing over and over again. If you have a mantra, for instance, I'm beautiful, I'm powerful, I'm enough, I'm worthy, I'm loved. If you keep repeating it over and over again, you will find peace, you will find power. Third comes purpose. I mean, the stories that we shared, it's all about how can I create value? I mean, all the hurt that I feel, all the isolation that I feel, if I can just turn it around. And the fact is, people who have turned it around did not have anything special about them. They had no superpowers, but they decided that they're going to turn it around. So you can also do the same. I'm sure even you have done that, right? I mean, you went through pain and then you turned it around. And that's a story with everyone. So turning it around and, figuring out, okay, all this that I'm going through, how do I help the world? How do I help myself? How do I heal myself? And in the process, someone else also gets healed.
I mean, closing off for me, I remember when I was at university and I was really deeply suicidal, one of the professors, she said to me, it gets better. There's light at the end of the tunnel. And that really was something I held on to. It was really motivated me. So the knowledge that things get better and things will improve is a very, to remain hopeful, I guess. That's a very, very important thing, that your state of mind you're in, it's not permanent and it can change and improve.
True.
Yeah.
True. I mean, the good thing, it's like, for instance, I forget whose quote this was. This is so meaningful. Like, you have birth and you have death, B and D. And it's all about the C between, the choices you make. So we all had a birth, we are all going to die. What are the choices that we're going to make? The choices are going to decide whether things are going to get worse, or the choices are going to decide whether we become the light the world needs.
So I will put your links in the description below, but how can people find you, follow you, get your courses, on your courses and things like that?
Okay, you can connect me over Instagram. It's Nuthan Manohar, Nuthan Manohar, or you can find me on LinkedIn, Nuthan Manohar, or Facebook, Nuthan Manohar. My organization is called Me Met Me, to meet yourself, and that's the whole point. I think to meet the inner hero, the inner light.
Thank you for taking your time out to speak to us today.
Thank you.
It's been wonderful. Thank you. Very insightful. Are you going for your bike?
Thank you.
Are you going on your bicycle run now?
It's gonna be around 1, I think. Okay. It's gonna be 1 here. But I really thank you, and I hope some of it will stay. And if you remember nothing, just breathe deeply. And like Manjinder said, it's going to get better. Just do these 2 things: breathe deeply and believe it's going to get better, and make it better.
Okay, Nuthan Manohar, thank you very much. Take care and have a good night's sleep. See you later.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.